This is the Balancing Act by Security Compass, your guide to going fast while staying safe in today's digital world. Today we are joined by Hasan Yasar, Technical Director of Continuous Deployment at the Software Engineering Institute, CMU, to talk about Continuous ATO. We will start with the need to automate architectural assurance across the application build and deployment pipeline. Further, we will discuss how risk management is embedded into the process through security controls. Finally, we will conclude with how DevOps unlocks the ability to achieve continuous ATO.
Hello, everybody, and welcome today. Our guest speaker is Hasan Yasar from the SEI. Hasan, thank you very much for joining us today.
Hey, everyone. Thanks for having me, Altes.
So, Hasan, continuous ATO. We hear a lot about authorization. We hear a lot about across many different industries where there's a component in there related to the ability to go in there and verify what goes into an architecture, and there's implications for this in more than one space. But let's focus on the defense space for a moment. Can you fill us in a little bit on what continuous ATO is in that context?
Absolutely, Altes. So continuous ATO, first of all, ATO means ATO is authorize to operate. And we would like to authorize any changes in application that goes into production environment to operate them. So to have that ATO process, and fundamentally based on the risk management framework, 800-37, and looking for the 800-53 controls. The concept of the approval and look for any security controls applicable for that specific application and authorize application that addressed all the security controls. So for years, an IA person, information assurance, or the assessors, or whoever are responsible for ATO, they were using the framework, but they were using the framework in a manual fashions. Like what the manual fashion was, like selecting controls, then putting in Excel spreadsheets. And I saw the Excel file and has 1,100 controls in it as an example for one single applications. Then after that, chasing the developers or the security to get any evidence of any specific control has been addressed based on the level of the risks. Mm-hmm. It's a time consuming because there is no really automated process that feeding that data set is requiring to get an approval. What the IA person or authorizer does, getting an application, putting it into the sandbox, and using a static analysis tools and dynamic analysis tools, looking for any findings that address the security control is being solved. Let's say they're looking for maybe SQL injections, maybe they're looking for buffer overflow, maybe segregation of duties, whatever the controls are, analyzing manually on their sandbox. That process sometimes was taking years, sometimes 6 months. I never seen any ATO was done less than 6 months in the manual process.
Mm-hmm. That's interesting. So, yeah, sorry, go ahead, please.
Yeah, so that's really a driving force in the communities using a continuous concept of the ATO. Still using a risk management framework, but adding an automation on top of that process. Mm-hmm. So we have another things out as, and the manual process was bottleneck. When we have a need changes on an application context, maybe application has a single line of change, maybe application has the little change, like maybe a text box changes. So according to the approval, ATO person, it's a whole system changes. So they have to go to the whole process again. Every little changes and takes the 6 months to reapprove again. So that's really, it's not working either because now we are living in a domain, we would like to have constant changes in application, and with the manual mindset and with the whole process of approving everything from scratch, it is not working. Mm-hmm. So that's another driving force to think about the continuous concept as a continuous ATO. So as a summary, the continuous ATO is automating the risk management framework and approval process and have a continuous assessment and approval of anything that we are building in a life cycle.
That's great. Thank you. So it sounds like there's this integration here really with what's happening on the DevOps side as well. Can you talk a little bit about how DevOps
Right.
might help with continuous ATO, and what are some
Well,
areas where DevOps hasn't quite yet filled that gap?
so the why DevOps helping, I think we should ask the question, how we can achieve the continuous ATO? The only solution is via DevOps. So DevOps component, as we know that there is a couple component in the continuous integration, continuous delivery and deployment concept, continuous feedback. To achieve the automation of the approval process, we need to have some instruments in place. So let's say I'm a approval, I'm an auditor or the IA information assurance person are analyzing the systems. I need some evidence. So evidence are static analysis. Instead of using a static analysis tools on my silo in my environment, technically I can use the same tools in the DevOps pipeline, which DevOps pipeline has the integration process in it and has the various test harnesses. Inserting the static analysis tool is being used from a security folks put into DevOps pipeline and address any vulnerabilities and scanning while we are building. So while we are building, actually, as soon as when we have a new build as part of the integration server, then we have a result of the static analysis tools. It's going to help to IA person to approve it. End of the day, somebody has to approve that. And I saw some cases, the system is approving a little change. It's not requiring the whole human in the loop. It depends on the change size. If it is like a basic text changes on the UI, it's not going to require a person to approve that. So that type of little changes can be monitored and analyzed through DevOps environment using a continuous integration concept, using a different test harnesses, and using a full traceabilities of a code has been generated against the case. That case has the security requirements in it. So now DevOps is helping about the traceability perspective. Since it is a continuous integration with any new changes and a system that we are building, which is iterative incremental fashion, it is going to be constant incremental changes of the code that we are building, and also incremental security checks for things that we are building. So instead of looking for a whole system for the past approval, we are looking for only the changes for that moment. So now we basically getting from an approval for little by little as process as we go. As we build, we are looking for approval as we build. So as soon as when we have any pieces of things that we are pushing the deployment environment with DevOps way, then helping the ATO to have a continuous process of approval. So now we are not approving the whole system, we are approving any individual components. That is happening with the DevOps mindset. So in the DevOps, we discovered a couple of things out there. One is the platform perspective we spoke so far, which is CI and CD, continuous integration, continuous delivery, continuous feedback. All the continuous fashion is helping with the tooling with the platform perspective. But also DevOps is bringing a good piece of people, which is nice collaboration with the stakeholders. It's also helping with the team members, how the teams are collaborating for the security controls, how teams are exposing the information with the rest of other stakeholders. So now we are connecting the people elements as well and through the platform. So people are communicating each other using a maybe case management system or any wiki pages and so forth. It's helping with the people side of it. So the continuous ATO is based on the right process with using the right technology and tools that achieve an approval all the time. So that's the major help from the DevOps environment. And I give the many talks. If we are thinking about the continuous ATO, there is no way to achieve continuous ATO without thinking DevOps at all. Now it is happening because of DevOps is facilitating that discussion by human side of it with the right technology and right thinking and right implementation with the concept of ATO.
Interesting.
So
that's wonderful. Yeah, go ahead, please.
there are some problems. Yes, there are problems on the DevOps, not solved yet. So the first problem we are expecting DevOps going to be a silver bullet, solve everything. No, DevOps is helping as the thinking as a mindset, like the mindset have the sharing and culture, collaboration pieces and measurement, monitoring perspective is great. And with the tooling, it's great, like set of practice we are talking about. So tooling, we have the right tooling in place, which is platform pieces. So we have the mindset of the sharing and collaboration metrics. But fundamentally, there is another important factor. It's not a DevOps problem. It's not solving that. That has to be solved by the team members, putting a right security architecture in place. It's not a thing that we are expecting DevOps is going to solve problem. No, DevOps will facilitate, will help, but we have to think about the right security architectures. So what that means, security architecture, if we are building a system, if our system is not addressing security by design, either we are creating maybe microservices, maybe model, whatever the framework or architecture we are using it, if you're not embedding that security thinking into our design phases or the requirement or without thinking risk perspective, we cannot achieve the continuous ATO either. We may have a dependency level. We may get a approval independence level like libraries or the infrastructure pieces, operating systems. But we are missing the application layer ATO because application layer ATO depends on what things we are building. So this problem is not solved by the DevOps yet. And then other problem is not solved yet, and learning from the mistakes or learning from our analysis. So it's a continuous things, like one of the elements in the risk management framework about the monitoring. So we have to monitor the data sets in the either production environment and feeding back to our test harnesses. So we are facilitating infrastructure, but the learning pieces requiring another set of thinking. And maybe we have to learn from the monitoring the data collections and train the systems, understand the systems, and also give some predictive analysis or look at the data sets and give the better the estimates or better analysis, or better the prediction of the work in with respect to security. So these are things has not been solved yet and requiring process changes and requiring other set of tools and set of practices in DevOps environments out there.
Wonderful. That's great. So today we talked about what is continuous ATO. We also discussed how does DevOps help with continuous ATO. And then we talked about some of the gaps that exist outside of the DevOps space that still need to be addressed as well. Hasan, thank you very much as always for talking to us today. Appreciate it.
Thank you, Altes. Thanks for having me.
Can't get enough of the balancing act? Make sure to check out our website at www.securitycompass.com and be sure to subscribe to our channel for more episodes.